Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we have an extra special guest. We will plummet the depths of the cosmos for horror and find out the secrets with which man dread. But before we get started with that, Empire of the Undying Sun. If you are a fan of tabletop role playing games and you like yourself Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition or 1st edition, why don't you check out Empire of the Undying Sun, which is a horror campaign guide, mostly focusing on American style horror. We have fantastic artwork. We have roughly 450 pages of levels 1 through 10 content. Everything you're going to need to play the game is in here. We have new rules for a dream realm where you can go in your dreams and speak with other people, perhaps speaks with gods, but you have to beware of the nightmares. And if your players are clever enough, they can become somebody else's Freddy Krueger. We have simplified naval combat rules. We have woods with terrible dark secrets, swashbuckling pirate adventures. We have jungles with creatures just waiting to devour your flesh, deserts with sands that howl at night with the ghosts of those long departed, ancient ruins that your players will need to plummet to find treasure, and eventually in the Black Pyramid, a mega dungeon that can reconfigure itself like a Rubik's Cube. They will make a choice that change the fate of the world. That and wargaming rules available. So go and back it on Kickstarter now. There is a link right there. And I will be your best friend. So tonight, I have a guest. A man. Is he a man? Is he an alien in a human suit? Or an author, an artist, a radio DJ who just has a penchant for the cosmic? We have today Ishiro Finney. How's it going?
Well, hello there. Yes, it is I, Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit, and apparently a DJ now as well, with Radio Bonsai. And I'm here to talk to you about not only the unearthly horrors of the unknown and the dreaded beyond, but UFOs, fact and fiction.
Yeah, so I have been a fan of UFOs since I was a kid. But at some point, something changed because there was always like, the little gray aliens are in the small egg-shaped spacecraft. There's cigar-shaped spacecraft, and then somehow we jumped to the lizard people are from Rigel 3. So how did we go from like kind of sort of maybe something to something that is uber specific? What's going on in the folklore and mythology of aliens that now people are really like? I feel like it's really developing into like a concrete point.
Well, I would say what we're seeing is it kind of developing into a full blown mystery cult. What we had starting from, I guess, the Betty and Barney Hill incident becoming popularized in the mid 1970s to Close Encounters, then Whitley Strieber in the 80s with Communion. We had the whole phenomena of the X-Files in the 90s and all the alien stuff related to there. Throughout all of that, we had a consistent theme. There was a consistent narrative stringing it all together. And that narrative was kind of fed upon itself based on actual real incidents that did happen. And I'm willing to go far enough to say that, yes, these are concrete encounters that did, in fact, happen, a number of them. mixed with Air Force intelligence deciding, well, how do you hide something this huge? How do you hide it? Well, you don't
Mhm.
keep secrets. What you do is you admit the absolute truth and then muddy it up with the most outlandish, bizarre crap that so that when a normal person comes across the truth or hears the truth, they won't believe it because they'll immediately think, oh, yeah, isn't that the same theory that also says Jesus was an alien and this and this and this?
Mhm.
And they're here to look at our butts, and just really silly crap is tossed in there. And by the way, them doing the probing isn't nearly as insane as you would think. There's actually a very simple logic to that. Um, when you want to study a species and really keep track of what it's eating, you look at its fecal sample.
Well,
And
that is true.
sure, you've got transdimensional aliens that can reach through flesh and just, I suppose there could be other methods. But we humans have all sorts of am I a human? Have all sorts of sophisticated methods of getting one place to another, but we still walk places because it's easy and cheap.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
don't
That's
have
true.
to. Oh, you don't have to use the highest of high tech. Sometimes just a simple fecal sample is all you need. Um, as silly as it sounds, but it's true. It's the same thing we do with animals that we're monitoring. But
Yeah.
this narrative was fed upon by the actual incidents, Air Force intelligence hiding it in plain sight by telling us everything that's true and then muddying it up with a bunch of nonsense. They went so far as to planting people within UFO groups, partially because the Soviets had spies within the UFO groups as a cover for spying on Air Force bases. But they also did it to manage the, well, disclosure. They were trying to keep the story under control. And we can talk about how good they were at doing that in a
Hmm.
minute. But so you had the Air Force purposely muddying it up. They had advisors working on the X Files, they had advisors working on a number of films and books, all suggesting plot ideas to control the narrative.
Hmm. Interesting.
But then to top that off, you had urban myth at play and media at play feeding back in upon all this. And it was this kind of circular mythology and lore that started to develop. But you had a very solid central mythology being controlled by Air Force intelligence, who had hired sci fi writers and scientists to make very convincing arguments, or just providing stuff that was absolutely true and putting it out there. Um, and how effective was that? Well, you could have an entire population in 1997 watch football field sized flying V's buzz their home in Phoenix, Arizona. Video evidence, countless credible witnesses, people seeing it at treetop level. And yet, the narrative of only kooks see UFOs was so effective that the boomer population, at least, and the greatest generation, once they were told, oh, this is just flares, they all went with it. Now, we grew up on the X Files, and
Mhm.
we were kind of raised not to trust anything. So that didn't go over as well for Generation X and anyone following Generation X. Like, yeah, yeah, flares. Yeah, I buy that. But then why did it go to reptoids? Well, one is the internet. The internet was a large portion of that. The reptilian thing has always been in the back of our brains. There's always been narratives about shape-shifting reptiles that have been manipulating humanity. And that comes up time and time again. I mean, V is a great example.
Yeah.
But we had 9/11. 9/11 happened. Suddenly, nobody cared about aliens. For about 10 years, it was all zombies, and occasionally reptilians were talked about. And as we started to enter into what is now the modern era, more and more of this lore of reptilians started to take hold. And the Air Force has absolutely played on that. I mean, their newest narrative is now that the Greys are actually just biological robots doing the bidding of the reptoids, which one thing you can do with patterns, with propaganda, okay?
Mhm.
hiding things in plain sight only works for so long
Yeah.
because when you've got something going back to 1947 at least, where the press says we've captured a saucer, and then made that story disappear until the 70s. When you've got propaganda going back that far, and by the way, in the 50s there even was a program within the CIA to seed ideas about extraterrestrials in our media, uh, and to give us a certain impression of extraterrestrials via the media. And once that goes on, once you start hiding things in plain sight over a period of like 50, 60, 70 years, there's a way to figure out what's real. And that way to figure out what is real is, okay, what part of the story doesn't change?
That's true.
The story about the Greys keeps changing. What doesn't change is the Greys. They're still
That's
there.
true.
The um, Yeah, Robert E. Howard was a big one with the Snake Men, but keep in mind there was also all the Hollow Earth theories,
Yeah.
and then you go even further back, and you start getting into um, the Naga and various Snake Men myths throughout the Mediterranean and Middle East. But anyway, what is interesting is the stories about the Greys, their origin, what they're here for, what they're doing, has some leeway, and that narrative keeps changing. But what doesn't change is that they're there.
Hmm.
And the reptilian thing, I've got some personal opinions on what that may actually be, but that is a lot more incoherent because it's sourced out of internet rumor milling and urban myth. There was no controlled Air Force intelligence narrative being woven again by scientists and sci-fi writers
Yeah.
who doing this. Also, you've got the fact that you've got a population of people who did experience things with the Greys that would speak. And there's some real interesting things that happened. For instance, prior to the Betty and Barney Hill incident, interactions and encounters with the Greys, they tended to have humanoid eyes. They had eyes like ours, just bigger.
Hmm.
Also, they tended to wear clothing or uniforms. And you might get a tour of the ship. You would see ornamentation, aesthetics that you would expect from a culture. Then there was, I always forget the movie. It was a TV movie came out in 1974, I believe.
Hmm.
And it had James Earl Jones in it. And it's really, really worth seeing. It's very well done. 1974 5 movie, the UFO incident, and it starred James Earl Jones and I forget the actress they had, but that came out, and then Close Encounters came out. And by the way, an advisor on Close Encounters, you had Jacques Vallée and Hynek. J. Allen Hynek were advisors, and they were the ones that said the aliens should look like this. Both of those gentlemen were part of Project Blue Book. They're the two scientists from Blue Book who said, no, we were lying to you. We were paid to lie to you and make stuff up. This stuff's all real. Opposed to certain debunkers who stayed on board, such as Carl Sagan. No offense to Carl Sagan. I think generally he did a lot of good in his life, but that was one part where he was definitely still working for the Air Force. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize Carl Sagan was part of Blue Book and post Blue Book and had lots of ties to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Anyway, once that mainstream image started to come out, especially after the film, the whole thing with Communion with Whitley Strieber, that once the image of the Greys started to come out, there was some real interesting things that started happening. Once it became very clear that people were remembering these encounters. Suddenly, the Greys stopped wearing colorful blue uniforms or wearing insignias. Their spaceships suddenly became very sterile, very white, white on white, very few decorations or any sort of aesthetics whatsoever. They started wearing these skin tight skin suits that that almost looked just, you couldn't tell if it was flesh or an outfit, and these black lenses over their eyes. Also, they became far less communicative, stopped talking as much, stopped sharing as much. And from a science perspective, if you were to look at that from a science as a scientist, you would do that to prevent contamination of your experiment.
Interesting.
Wait a minute, the test subjects are remembering. They're learning stuff. This is actually influencing what we're doing. We have to dial this back. And by the way, one of the things that I find really interesting about the first real popular abduction case with the Greys, Betty and Barney Hill, is you can continually go back to that incident, and they describe stuff that at the time, the person that was working with them, the guy who put them through hypnosis, who was very legitimate, by the way. There's a lot of crap due to bad hypnotic regression, like guys like Bud Hopkins did more damage than good. But the person that was the doctor, I think it was Benjamin Simon, I think was his name, was highly, highly esteemed, actually still works. His primary contributions were to helping soldiers with post-traumatic stress. He is a legend in the business. Him being part of the Betty and Barney Hill case was just kind of happenstance. And he doesn't like to talk about it much. He will, but he tries to keep those two worlds separate. So their regression was, when he worked with them, that was pretty legitimate. But when you go back to what he recorded and listen to those tapes, it's very interesting that Barney and Betty are describing things that we nowadays would instantly recognize, but back then, the hypnotist himself and the two of them were having trouble describing what they were seeing. One of the common parts with the Betty and Barney Hill case is Zeta Reticuli. They show Betty this star map, and it's usually portrayed as a flat map. In most portrayals, either in movies or books, the map's shown as kind of this flat map on a screen. But you listen to the hypnotic regression, she's describing a three-dimensional hologram. But in 1962, who the hell knew what that was?
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. There's another case, another Betty Van Andreessen case, her case, where again she was just this farm girl, college, high school graduate, lived a very simple life, very religious woman. She thought she was encountering angels, by the way. You listen to her hypnotic regressions and what she recalls from the incident, and she's describing stuff that only now we're becoming familiar with. And at the time, the people writing this stuff down and doing the transcripts were having trouble trying to find something to liken the technology to, or they really didn't have the vocabulary to explain what they were seeing. But those two were really big cases. There's also the Villaboas case, but that's just one side of it. You get into the reptilian stuff, that's a whole different world. That really does more crossover into, put bluntly, urban legend, mythology, and demonology.
Yeah, that is kind of one. Another question I had is like, so let's assume that kind of what you're saying is correct, and these things are happening, but it's kind of like being spun up a lot by the military. What I'm wondering is, do you think humans as a species have a need for these kind of stories? Because if you look in the past, we have all sorts of stories about gods and beings that are above our our intellect, that are above our strength and have abilities that we don't. But nobody really believes in them anymore. Do you think part of the reason that these stories have been able to be blown up so much is that we have an innate need for these kind of things? And this just fits right into that slot at the perfect time when we have nothing else taking that space?
Maybe. Uh, if you had asked me that a year or two ago, I would have said yes.
Hmm.
But considering the recent disclosures we've been getting from, they're the ones I trust and the ones I don't. Um, I'm more of a mind of what Carl Jung said. His last book was about UFOs,
Yeah.
actually. And he was friends with Alan Dulles. He had inside information at the CIA. Most people don't know that. Um, Carl Jung wrote, his last book was about UFOs. And from his viewpoint, the phenomena was absolutely 100% real. This wasn't in question when he wrote this book. And again, this is a man who is personal friends with Alan Dulles of the CIA. And his personal take, his idea was that this phenomena that we're seeing in our skies and these visitations have always been there. These have been going on as long as there have been humans, and that our interpretation as aliens is our modern mind's narrative that we've attached to this phenomena. He called them technology angels, which I thought was curious. So that was his take. So it's a chicken or the egg that, yeah, we do need this. And I can show you how badly we need it. How many people say they're Jedis? Their religion is Jedi.
Too many.
Thoroughly fictional universe that taps into universal themes that have been with us since the dawn of time. Didn't matter that a hippie, Lucas, directed it. At its core, the values and the narrative and the universal archetypes in that story make it a traditional hero's journey that is about as conservative and as traditional as you can get. It filled that need for legend and myth and religion, and it didn't even have to be real. We knew that galaxy in a far, far away was a fairy tale, but it was real enough that people would be Jedis and say, this fits my value system. And they have their own little conventions and rituals and all those other things, filling that gap. But, you know, at the same time, Star Wars, the original trilogy, which, go figure that the communists would utterly try to ruin this narrative. They need to get rid of this narrative that was, again, echoing a savior story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Western canon, beat for beat, right there, right before our eyes, just in, laser, blaster pistols and TIE fighters,
Yeah, although in all fairness, apparently the original pitch that George Lucas put to
Flash Gordon.
Fox, no, it was the rebels were supposed to be Viet Cong, and the Empire was supposed to be the U.S. And Fox was like, "Hell no."
See, that doesn't matter though. See, that's the thing. I actually mentioned this on Radio Bonsai yesterday when I did my Make Goth Great Again episode. I said, we don't need conservative art. I keep hearing this. Well, where's the answer to woke art? We need conservative art. And I said, no, we don't. No, we don't. We don't need Christian rock. We don't need Daily Wire movies. We don't need some sort of pendulum swing that preaches the opposite. No, we just need art. We need our legends and our myths back. We need to be telling the stories we've been telling from the dawn of time that we thrive on, that make, the things that have been in the back of our brains, the stuff that dreams are made of, that have been with us forever. That's what needs to be fed. Those universal morals and values and human truths that go beyond politics. Politics are crap. Politics are policy. Politics are temporary. No, let's have higher aims here, people. Let's aim for truths, universal truths, right and wrong, morality, heroism, sacrifice, family. I mean, so it doesn't matter if it was originally the Viet Cong versus the US. Lucas can put it through any fantasy lens he wants, but because he was telling it through universal archetypes, it's timeless.
Yeah.
And regardless of his own prejudice and his own take on things, the underlying message of rising up against oppression, the message of there being more than just the material world, that there are higher values that go beyond the flesh and blood or the pleasures of the material world. All of that stuff, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your politics are. That's just truth.
Well, that is true.
No, Allen Dulles was a horrible man, wave mutilation. He was a horrible, horrible man. But I'm saying Carl Jung knew him personally. So if he had any inside scoop, I'm sure he would have known if they were fake or not.
That's true. Yeah, Christian Rock. What do you do with all your Striper albums? Well, Wave. Maybe if you send enough Rumble rants, there will be a Radio Bonsai episode of Christian Rock.
I have never listened to Striper, dude. Sorry, not my thing.
It's not great. Yeah, I mean that's the problem with
okay.
that's the problem with all conservative art is that once you aim to be conservative, it just turns to crap because that's the overriding thing. It's like there's a lot of Christian movies, which I'm all for. Christian movies, Christian themed movies, that's fine. But the problem is like a lot of them are being funded by ministers from like mega churches and stuff like that who have money to sponsor it. So the problem is when you got the money, you get the say, and they want to make sure that there's a sermon in it, which is the least interesting way to get that message across in a movie. But
well, do we need Christian movies? No, we just need movies. We don't need Christian movies. You want a Christian movie? Nausicaa of the Wind. Mm-hmm. There's your Christian movie, okay? There.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You don't need that. Like you can still have the values, but without making it because Jesus said this, or you're up against a demon, and then please Jesus, and then he just makes them disappear, and it's like, all right, well, let's get some
cheesy
pie.
crap. I'll give you another one: Ghost in the Shell, the Mamoru Oshii version, not the others. The Ghost in the Shell, the original film, packed full of Christian symbology and Christian mythos. I mean, there's the Ephesians reference that they always get wrong, mistranslate for some reason, but as well. But I mean, Mamoru Oshii's work is just rife with Skycrawlers is a Christian film if you think about it. But he doesn't beat you over the head. It's about it's about the spirit aspect of it.
Yeah.
It's not the preachy shit. It's about the higher values and concepts.
Yeah, definitely. So getting back to aliens a little bit. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I was listening to some podcast the other day, and they were saying that somewhere, I don't know where, they did a survey of people who claimed to have alien abductions, but claimed that they were able to stop them. And the only way that people were able to stop them is by praying to Jesus. Now, I don't think it was a Christian-specific podcast that I was listening to, because I'm sure that would have flagged myself in my mind. But I'm wondering, are there, in the alien stories, the mythos, shall we say, the parts that are real and not real, does there seem to be almost like a like religious rituals starting to form on like how these things happen or how they should go or how you prevent them?
Oh, sure, yeah. There's always been a spiritual aspect to the abduction narrative. And as someone who, at this point, I don't really care anymore. I've kind of gone scorched earth on myself, so I don't. As someone who's went through that process himself, yes, I just said that, everyone. It's true. What it is that it begins as horrifying, and over time, you are put through a series of trials that you don't understand, and the visage of the gray is again utterly terrifying. This is the male version. The female version tends to have a motherhood component,
Hmm.
but once you come through the crucible afterwards, you come out of it with a better understanding, an understanding of what you've encountered. You learn to honor it, and it honors you, and that you realize there you come back with a larger scope of the universe itself, your place in it, and with a better sense of needing to go out and do good. That is the typical. I mean, I could dig it out. Let me actually. There is a 7-stage process that plays out in the abduction experience. Now, this is with grays, and specifically grays. There are other kinds, and I'm going to point out another interesting thing about the reptilian lore. Grays have technology. Whenever you deal with grays, they have extremely high technology. A curious thing about the reptilians is the stories that are quote unquote more credible. I don't
Mhm.
have as much faith in those stories. Air Force intelligence has latched on and has really played up the religious angle as of late to confuse things. Um, yeah, but oh, give me a second. I'm trying to find the file.
No worries.
But
And let's see.
but anyway, the reptoids or reptilians, the there are things like there are usually no spacecraft. There's usually very little technology. It's what they use is essentially satanic ritual and black magic. The technology that's seen is our technology, human technology. They don't have technology of their own. Um, and when they do seem to display uh, superhuman sorts of abilities, it doesn't involve technology. It seems to be more inherent. Okay, here we go. Well, maybe not. Um, so that's another interesting aspect of that whole phenomena is that there is, for the idea that the reptilians are supposedly alien creatures, they really aren't all that high tech. In fact, they're pretty damn primitive and highly reliant on humans for everything, for the most part. A very parasitic sort of relationship. And when they do show astounding feats, it's almost always either human technology that's been built for them, or it's some sort of black magic or psychic ability,
Hmm.
some sort of demonic thing. So again, that's why I said it kind of goes back to they're more demonic in nature in their portrayal.
So, okay, I guess that does leave me a tad confused. So, are the reptoids actually aliens? If they don't have ships and technology, how they get here, or are they demons, or how? Like, are we now fusing two different genres together? How does this work?
I think that's exactly where we're going. I think that's where it's headed. And considering how much has been released as of late, um, I'm not saying I believe it, but if it turns out that we do have shape-shifting reptilians that have been living alongside us as a break-off species that just happens to have certain characteristics that we associate as being reptilian, I'm not even going to be surprised anymore. Just how many of the conspiracy theories turned out to be true.
Hmm. Yeah, speaking of that, after COVID, about 5 years ago, was there an uptick in not necessarily the number of alien stories, but more people being like, "Yeah, I can see that."
Uh, Repeat the question. I'm sorry.
So to me, it seems like a lot of things in society changed after COVID,
Yeah.
and I'm curious if one of those things is the believability. So, like you were saying earlier, in the '80s and '90s, if anybody claimed to have any of these experiences, they were automatically a kook. But
Yeah.
after everything that happened in 2020, the year that is best forgotten, what do you? Is it a general phenomenon that more people are like, yeah, I could see aliens. Yeah, reptoids.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
so much got revealed. So much of the mask slipped. So much happened in that year. So many of these big conspiracies turned out to be true that it's time to everyone started to take a step back and say, all right, what else is true?
Yeah.
Where else are we being manipulated? And I think that's probably what happened is at this point, my honest opinion is Air Force intelligence is running scared because they can't keep it suppressed anymore. And there is a real effort on their part to try and confuse and muddy the waters as much as possible. There's a number of things that happened that were like massive mistakes on their part, or
Mhm.
not on their part, on the Pentagon's part. Uh, Keep in mind the agencies are not all in agreement. The Navy has its interests, the Pentagon has its interests, the CIA has its interests, and the Air Force seems to be the go-to who know the most about UFOs, and they don't want to talk about it. When they had the Academy of the Stars happen with that dude from Blink 182, it was an intelligence op, and he was a dupe
Mhm.
that had been going on since the 90s. What I forget, it was Tom DeLonge of Blink 182 had been in contact with John Podesta of the Clinton administration
Totally
since,
not a reptoid.
yeah, exactly. Uh, John Podesta had been in contact with him since the Clinton administration about UFOs, and they had slowly been working on him as kind of this spokesperson and a dupe. They finally cut him loose and say, "Okay, go out there." And his message is trust the government, trust the CIA. They're the little gray men are actually demons, and we're at war with them. And really, you've just got to keep giving us your tax dollars and trust the CIA to fight them off, and it's all good. And he got roasted on Joe Rogan. It just fell apart, went to complete shit right then and there. And they kept tossing out different people as the face of this new disinformation. And suddenly the Air Force is like, oh, Christ, now we have to get. Because this was not done with the Air Force's knowledge. This was primarily the Pentagon, the CIA, and the Navy. And then when they started doing this, oh, we're going to get into, okay, UFOs are real now, guys. Let's talk about it. All the stuff starts coming out, and the guys of the DoD, they're like, wait a minute, that happened. Wait, that happened too. Wait, there's evidence for this. Air Force, what's going on? Air Force, we're not talking. Yeah, and so you've got these competing narratives now, where you've got the Air Force, you've got the whole UAP, ACAP phenomena going on that's an op, and you've got the CIA, and you've got these various competing factions, all with their own version of the narrative. The only one that seems to have actually known what the hell was going on is the Air Force, and this was all meant to be a way to manipulate us, and it just fell apart hard. And then also on top of that, you've got Senator Luna and Tom Burchett doing investigations, disclosing stuff, and they're the most trustworthy of the bunch. The Air Force actually had an armed standoff with them, trying to prevent them from
Really?
looking at their files.
Wow.
And what those two have come back with, because I find them thoroughly trustworthy. They're the only two I actually, when they say something, I buy it. They said flat out what we're dealing with is interdimensional technology and interdimensional beings that
Hmm.
some might be from the sky, Some have always been here and always lived here. And
Interesting.
so desperate to get a control of the narrative, the Air Force has now wheeled out their number one guy, their expert at disinformation, Richard Doty, who had retired and he was done with all this. They wheeled him out of retirement to try and regain control, but it's too freaking late. Too much has been revealed. And
Interesting.
once you start acknowledging things like, well, no, the Air Force is sitting on information that what Jacques Vallée said back in 1974, that we were dealing with extra dimensional visitors, and that a lot of these UFO phenomena seem to be occurring within a sort of reality bubble where they kind of create this pocket reality in the localized space that they're in, where the rules of physics suddenly behave differently. They've pretty much admitted, no, Vallée was right the whole time. And then turning out that Tim Burchett the other day, just showing he does not care anymore, just spilled, oh yeah, by the way, we have an Area 51 for the ocean. It's located here. These are the key spots you can visit if you want to see our test vehicles. He doesn't care.
So then, what was that guy's name? I think Bob Salazar. He's the one who was investigating that spacecraft, right? That he couldn't make heads or tails of.
Bob Salazar. Oh, there are so many names.
There was a guy who was on Rogan a couple years ago, and supposedly, I can't remember if it was the 80s or the 90s, but sorry?
Is this the guy that went underwater? The one they found underwater?
No. This was the guy that he said that every 10 years, the Air Force has engineers and scientists go to look at some spacecraft that they supposedly captured, found, or something. And it has like a gravity drive, and they got in, but they don't know how to control it. And like every 10 years,
Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
Bob Lazar. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Lazar. Oh, okay, not Salazar. Yeah. So then, theoretically, would that craft not be a spacecraft, but like a dimensional hopping craft?
Or just a craft that is designed to operate within the Earth atmosphere, that uses technology that operates on principles we don't understand. These aren't necessarily spacecraft. I mean, anyone who really digs into Roswell, the initial talk was this was an atmospheric craft that was for scouting and not spaceworthy.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's really interesting how much information is just spilling out now. And another thing, that one of the reasons, the whole thing when they played the Academy to the Stars and, oh, UFOs are real now, guys, and it was a complete op to try and get us distracted. They had been sitting on that since the 50s as a just in case. If things get too hot for us and the people are getting pissed off, and the greater system is at risk, or they might come for our heads, we'll just drop UFOs and aliens to get them distracted and leave us alone. It just flopped. Nobody cared. They were laughed out of the room. They said UFOs are real, and everyone said yes, and just went on with their day. And it was like they had sat on this information so long that when they finally played the trump card, it didn't do anything. Everyone said, "And my groceries are expensive. Shut up."
Huh. Very interesting. So,
but
no, go ahead.
Regarding the Greys, one thing to keep in mind is the CIA does use alien abduction as a cover for operations. Often for interrogation or for other reasons, they will fake abductions. And that goes back to the 50s with George Adamski, who, I think he lived in, was it Arrowhead or was it Palomar? but he was a kind of a mystic, and he was giving tours and kind of kind of a con artist type. But he was also a Soviet spy. And then suddenly, Bob, or not Bob Lazar, George Adamski starts having real visitations. And these real visitations, he's told to go to a certain location. He sees the saucer waiting, and he gets on board. And there's some Nordics on board, and they serve him some blue drinks. And suddenly, the ship takes off, and he's getting tours of the galaxy. And the experience, which obviously was chemically enhanced. If anyone knows anything about these ops, it was chemically enhanced. Interesting. Yeah. God damn it, if that tour didn't sound a hell of a lot like a ride that came out about 5 years later for Disney called Journey to Mars. And it turns out that Walt Disney was allowing the CIA to use any of the Imagineer stuff that they'd come up with, including Journey to Mars. But there's a couple things that are kind of telltale signs that if the abduction experience is excruciatingly painful, torturous, if it involves lots of needles and syringes, I mean, one or two might be fine, but I mean, if there's lots of needles or something out of a body horror film, it's probably either an op or it's bullshit. Either it's someone looking for attention or it's a CIA op. Gray aliens don't really need to rely on something as technologically unsophisticated as a syringe that much. I mean, for one or two things, maybe. What's interesting is that in these stories that are reliable or more believable, they all seem to have either a it's about the length of a number one pencil, or it can be anywhere between the length of a number one pencil to a 12-inch ruler, and it's a metal rod or a crystal wand that does sort of a universal tool that seems to be a focus that takes care of everything. And
it's the Dr. Spanner.
Yeah, essentially. But one of the most common things people will say is if it starts to hurt, the reaction will be why are you in pain? This shouldn't hurt. And it says, well, it hurts. And then they'll touch them on the forehead with the wand and it goes away. But the wand is like straight out of fairy lore. And a lot of the things that happen, like abducting human women to go into a room full of gray alien children and mother them, is straight out of fairy lore. The idea that Greys will abduct human women because they're having fertility problems, straight out of fairy lore. There are so many different, the stories of the changeling, same thing. It's interesting how much of it is similar to the Fae.
Yeah.
Whereas the stuff that seems more like what you would see in Fire in the Sky, that is more what you'd expect from a CIA op. Something really mind-scarringly traumatizing. Most of the real ones that are trustworthy, physical pain is not the issue. It's usually fear.
Yeah.
It's fear of what you're encountering. And some of the more amusing abduction accounts that I find it's just, they're ones where it's like, okay, that just doesn't sound fake. Which was the one guy in Regression has the gray alien walk over to him and look at him and says, "Why are you screaming?" And the guy screams, says, well, "You're not in pain, but you keep screaming. Why are you screaming?" And the guy keeps screaming. "What can we do to get you to stop screaming?" Was one. Another one was a girl had talked about they had abducted her and she was 16 when she was 16, and they opened her mouth and the subordinates are poking and prodding at her mouth, trying to figure out how to get her braces off. And they're convinced it's jewelry, and they're asking her why she would glue jewelry to her teeth. And she says, "It's to straighten my teeth." And he says, "Why do you need straight teeth?" Uh, Same girl also later said that they had scolded her for her anorexia, and that she said that you have food is readily available to you. Eat it. You're hurting yourself was another one that I thought was funny. But apparently, a recurring one is a bizarre fascination with teeth and false teeth. Um, but okay, Fire in the Sky. You've seen the movie, right?
I think I've seen parts of it, like probably around the time it came out. But it's
Okay,
been
you
quite a
remember
while.
the abduction scene where
Yeah.
the ship's got is a mess? It's kind of gooey and organic, and
Mhm.
there's scattered, like baby shoes and clothing, and kind of implying that this is some sort of torture chamber. The entire thing's a nightmare. And I mean, as far as filmmaking goes, it was an incredible piece of horror. But the actual abduction story of Travis Walton wouldn't have made for good movie material, which was the true story. The ship was spotless and it was pretty clean, and it was white on white, and there was illumination, but he couldn't quite tell where it was coming from. It seemed to be coming from the floor. And that he woke up on the operating table, or the examination table, and um, got up, took a swing at one of the grays, and they all back off. And he runs over and grabs what he said looked like a glass tube, and starts swinging it at them. Scream. Basically, they're afraid he's going to kick their ass, and they all flee the room. Yeah, it would have been a different movie if that's what we had gotten.
Definitely.
And he wanders out, and him wandering the ship wasn't the horror show that we saw in the film. Instead, he wanders into a room, and as he wanders deeper into it, the steel walls of the ship start to become transparent. And there's kind of a control system that actually was straight out of the film Flight of the Navigator, with that trackball.
Oh, yeah.
Described that. Also, the ship seemed to change shape depending on what it was needed to do. He wanders into a hangar, and he sees more ships, and some humans that look a little too perfect walk over to him, and he's trying to talk to them. Essentially, they set him down, calm him down, and they gas him with sleeping gas, and then he wakes up by the side of the road. It really isn't the horror show that we get in the film. It's kind of like, what?
Doesn't Raltz, the author Raltz Bloodthorn, doesn't he have some good stories about that?
Yeah, he doesn't. He's very skeptical of this the phenomena, and he has encountered some of the drugs the military uses to fuck with your head, including the memory loss drug that causes lost time. But he had said that there was recurring incidents of Air Force guys showing up and waking up in a cornfield in Nebraska over and over again, the same cornfield. No idea how they went from Europe to Nebraska in less than 24 hours.
So Michael Dale asks, so do you know Sadhguru's interdimensional beings that he's investigating at that lake in India somewhere? That's super recent.
Don't know anything about that.
Okay. And then he also asks, what's your take on Richard Byrd and his adventures at the South Pole?
I honestly don't know. I mean, on the one end, it could be just good myth making, good urban legend, and journalists spicing up a story to make newspapers sell, or they really are trying to hide something. I mean, it does seem like they really don't want us to pay attention to Antarctica.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Rumor has it there's a lot of Chinese military bases there now. Uh,
There are military bases from all countries down there now.
well, especially focused on big radio telescopes.
Interesting.
So I don't know if it's true. And at this point in the show, I'd like to point out that I am not at all suicidal. Um, so moving on a little
Oh,
bit. Mhm.
um, just for full disclosure, the joke of human in an alien in a human suit
Mhm.
comes from my own experience, and me taking levity at the fact that I honestly don't know what I experienced. I don't know if I encountered alien grays or if it was just super lucid dreams. I just know that it was a life changing experience for me, and ultimately, I was better for it.
Hmm.
And what it was is 2 weeks after graduating high school, I was caught in a random shooting. Well, not a random shooting, it was road rage. A guy was having a bad day and decided he was going to take it out on, well, the first person he saw. And it turned out to be me. I got hit. He tried to, I was in a car with my sister and a friend, and we were going to Denny's so he could get his free birthday meal. And this guy who was having a very bad week snapped, chased us down, and unloaded his pistol on our vehicle. And I got shot in the back, and the bullet got lodged in my stomach. I nearly died. I was a very near death experience. Apparently, the surgeon even afterwards said I shouldn't be living. And the trauma of that, initially, I didn't experience any. I mean, initially, I was just happy to be alive. But as time went on, I went crazier and crazier and crazier. And what eventually happened was in college when I hit a point where I realized I was not getting any better and that I was going to stay in this pit. Oh, but I don't know. That was kind of fitting. Um, what was that music we heard?
Oh,
Uh,
got a spooky soundtrack
oh,
going in the background.
um, I realized I was spiraling into mental illness and trauma, and I wasn't getting any better, and something needed to happen. Um, I started having a series of hyper lucid dreams that only recently I got some more up to date information on that makes it even more curious. And in these hyper lucid dreams, I would always be in a situation that was life altering, where I would be forced into either making a decision or something would be forced upon me. Like accused of murdering someone when I was innocent. Another one was someone steps in front of my car and I hit them, and now everyone thinks I'm a murderer. Um, Others were just the world's ending, or the theme of everyone was this horrible life altering incident that there was no coming back from. That no matter what you did, the person you were afterwards was going to have a vastly different life. And the dreams were always traumatic. And right before the dream would ever come to a conclusion, where where I would have to make a choice to change or be overwhelmed and destroyed by what was happening, before that choice would be made, everything would freeze. It would all flicker out like the holodeck into
Hmm.
darkness, and there'd be two little alien grays. There'd be this window just floating in black space, just floating there, and operating controls. And it turns out what I found out much later is the experience is very similar to a real therapy, but much more high tech, called rehearsal therapy, which helps you process trauma, violent trauma. That was very strange to find out years later that those dreams mimicked an actual known therapy we use now. Just we don't have a holodeck, or the fact that it feels totally real while you were in it. Anyway, I only had one final dream after I had gotten through all of those, where they put me in this. It was a simulation where someone was dying of AIDS, and she only had a little bit of time left, and my job was to do everything I could to help her experience everything on her bucket list before she died, and make her life as useful, and to make it feel like she wasn't cheated of the life she could have had. And that was the last one. That was the last one. I never saw the Greys again. I had one last dream in which I was sitting on a van, and next to me was a woman, and we were driving. Someone else was driving. We're going through the forest, and I'll just get to the important part. Is I either I know or find out she actually is a Grey in human guise, and she's in that guise so we can talk, because it's too impossible to talk otherwise. And we talked for a bit, and it was kind of a coming to an understanding of you were only scary to me because I don't understand. You represent a knowledge so beyond myself, so cosmic in nature, understanding forces at work that I couldn't even comprehend, that it's terrifying. But ultimately, you're benevolent, and that was it. Coming to that understanding, I was suddenly at peace with the symbol or the dream image, and it never bothered me again, and actually kind of came to symbolize higher wisdom to me. It's kind of an archetype of higher wisdom, as kind of Zen-like grace. But the joke, the alien in a human suit, was one of the things she tells me as I'm making peace with her. Oh, by the way, I'm your cousin. We're related. And I'm like, well, that certainly complicates matters. And for the longest time, I just held on to, look, this was just hyper dream imagery. This was a very, very lucid dream, until the disclosure came that, no, we might be dealing with extra dimensional entities. And one of the things an extra dimensional entity could do is information downloads and super realistic dreams can be downloaded right into your brain. An extra dimensional species can do that. So then it's like, well, shit, is this a dream or not? I don't know. Now, part of me, I would really like to just cling to the hard materialism of it and say, oh, these are all Jungian unconscious images. But there's always now the possibility that there is a dimension of our reality that is the Jungian unconscious, that is as every bit as real as the world we're living in, the material world that we're comfortable with. But that makes other experiences I've had far more terrifying. And that's because I have had some really bad encounters with the Shadow Man, which is another urban figure that goes back to the dawn of time. And let me tell you, as comforting as it would be to think that there are these cosmic Zen masters tending over us, guiding us towards our higher selves and showing us knowledge when we need and helping us when we need, when the time is right to be guided. And thinking there is, accepting maybe there is a higher order, and that these little gray guys are just servants of that higher order, be it the Logos or something like that, because that also comes up in older gray lore. As comforting as that knowledge would be, I really don't want the Shadow Man to be anything other than a figment of my imagination, because that thing is so damn to have night terrors where you wake up and you're unable to move, and the shadowy figure who's semi-solid creeps in and repeatedly would come in and plunge a shadowy knife into my bullet wound, and the excruciating pain that comes with it. I'm far more comfortable with that being a Jungian archetype forming in my head and taking form in the stuff dreams are made of, rather than that actually being a tangible dimension of our reality.
Hmm. That's really a lot to consider, because a lot of things, the dream realm, some of these Jungian realms, um, they we have human, how would you say, human thoughts, human prototypes, ideas where these things exist going back at least 10,000 years.
Right.
So it's not like it's a brand new uh, phenomenon of the moment.
Well,
Uh,
Carl Jung, largely, what he did was dive into Eastern, uh, well, primarily Shinto Zen and um, Tibetan Buddhism. He also dove into European and Mediterranean alchemy, uh, and then translated it into the language of modern psychology. That's basically what he did. So
hmm.
he put it in a language that the modern man could understand without all this esotericism that you would need to uncode. It
Yeah,
was all in plain language.
yeah. I
So, if his collective unconscious turns out to be more than just a lived phenomena between species, but an actual tangible space, that puts everything we know into question. And that's kind of the things I've been struggling with as of late. And the one that was kind of the bomb dropped on my head was just no, the Air Force has been suppressing the fact that we've got knowledge of extra dimensional beings, we've got knowledge of extra dimensional technology, knowledge of dimensions that operate, proof. Uh, Lovecraft, the not the spaces we know, but the ones in between are actually real. And it's like, well, shit, if that's real, that puts everything in question. And then you get the weird stuff like all the weird NVG footage coming out of the Middle East with shapeshifters and shadows. And well, suddenly shapeshifting really is not all that complicated if extra dimensional technology is real. The concept of a hypercube, you're familiar with, right?
Yeah.
If if the thing you're looking at in this reality actually is much, much bigger and has a different portion of itself stored somewhere else, and you can just flip them back and forth, shapeshifting becomes extremely easy to explain.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And that's very unnerving, again, from some of the experience our soldiers are talking about in the Middle East. And you get Raltz talking on that subject. It's like, yeah, well, maybe the jinn are real. That's the
Yeah,
reality I'd rather not be real. I don't really want that to be real.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say yes, they are. No, they're not. But when you get to it, like people, we didn't just get smart recently.
Yeah.
People have
Actually, we're
always
kind of
been,
stupid right now.
yeah. And, people spent a lot of time trying to figure out the phenomena of the world around them. And, when you get to things like the ancient Chinese believed in Western Asia that there were there was midget men that hopped around on one foot. Like, okay, that wasn't things in their periphery, things that they encountered all
Yeah.
the time. So I can understand some nonsense there. But when you're talking about things that people encounter all the time, that they're
Right.
dealing with on a constant basis, uh, you know, to me, I don't know that they're 100% right based on today's science, but that doesn't mean that they're not talking about some real phenomenon. And they're able to observe it and give whatever this phenomenon is characteristics. So why are there all these jinn stories in the Middle East? I mean, they're cool, sure, but it seems to me that something's going on.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, the moment Senator Luna just flat out said the Air Force is sitting on evidence of extra dimensional beings and technology, and these extra dimensions existing. First thing I did was go straight to fairy lore, and look into, okay, how do you ward these things off? Um, and I wear a piece of iron around my neck now, and I'll tell you, I haven't had any more Shadow Man trouble.
Really? That's very
Psychosomatic,
interesting.
maybe, but there's also the possibility that iron is like a lightning rod.
Sure.
Different metals have different qualities, and
Different electrical charges.
right, and that radar doesn't work over heavily ironed areas
Hmm.
because the iron and the magnetism in the soil screws up radar and navigation. Certain phenomena only occur in areas where the soil is heavy in magnetic iron. And if we're dealing with something that's operating with energies that are different, and interestingly enough, there is stuff, again, that's been buried. It's not talked about much anymore. But the in Alien, it used to be in Gray Alien lore, they could go through walls using their technology, extra-dimensional technology. But if there was too much iron in the steel, they'd have to go through your front door.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting. Very
rather than
interesting.
phasing through your wall.
Oh, yeah.
So I find that very
Hmm.
fascinating. Um, but then, we've got all sorts of bizarre stuff that's just coming out that's like, well, is this real? Why, or for that matter, if it isn't real, why go through all the trouble of keeping it quiet? The fact that it does appear that at least a sizable portion of the rich elite are Saturnarian, that they worship some sort of variant of Saturn,
Yeah.
and that the religious iconography of Saturn is all over financial institutions. That Saturn is represented as a black cube made of lead, yet the crystalline form of iron is a black cube. Wait a minute. Why is that? Why do they all take this so seriously?
Hmm.
Why is it so important to them? In alchemy, the idea was that lead represented the material world in its most purest form, and trapped within that was gold. And oddly enough, they turned out to be atomically very, very close, the two of them, gold and lead.
Yeah.
Um, and that in alchemy, the lead and gold thing was actually a metaphor that you wanted to escape the box. You wanted the divine spark of gold to step outside the box of lead and have that experience of Plato's cave, stepping out of the
Hmm.
cave, seeing reality, the scales fall from your eyes, no
Hmm.
longer being trapped in the confines of a ultra systematic world of systems and determinism and um, material want and need, but higher purpose was gold.
Yeah. 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 I haven't dealt so much in Western alchemy myself, more Eastern. Not that I necessarily believe it. I certainly do not practice it, but I had to understand it
Yeah,
for work purposes. Um, but they were definitely trying to get at something, and I've kind of wondered, like in Western, it seems like calling it proto-chemistry is somewhat correct,
somewhat. Yeah,
because they were trying to figure out how to turn like one substance into another by combining two, and we can do that via just chemistry or nuclear physics. But it does seem like some parts of it were lost. Like, they discarded the esoteric parts, so
right.
to speak. But I've always wondered, like, well, did they jettison too much? How do you know that you got the right amount of that stuff, or is there is there some stuff in that old knowledge and that old material that's worth going back into to see if it's still correct or useful?
Well, one thing that I find kind of disturbing is that a lot of the Enlightenment seemed to be trying to jettison
Hmm.
um, the spiritual aspect
Yeah.
of existence, and spiritual doesn't necessarily have to mean just the realm of the divine, but just the fact that there are forces beyond us acting,
Hmm.
influencing us at all times, and that the immaterial is as just as important and real as the material is, because the Enlightenment were very hard materialists, and they seemed very interested in trapping us in hard materialist existence with hard materialist wants and needs. And don't worry about higher goals. Don't worry about higher purposes and callings and meanings. Just buy the fucking product. Pay your
Yeah.
taxes. Shut up. And that kind of, I kind of wonder, if that was intentional. I mean, Freud was very hypocritical in that he was very dismissive of myth and saying, oh, modern man doesn't need that superstition, but then proceeded to name all of his complexes after myths. Where what Jung did was saying, no, we need these things. These things are important. This is a critical part of our psychology, and we're starving it. And I think Freud did that intentionally. I think he did a lot of damage. Um, and I think it's no coincidence either that the soft sciences clung to Freud, who has got all
Hmm.
sorts of problems, but shunned Jung as a kook.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, to me, there's two ways to look at how society developed. You could either say that um, people were the people of influence at the top of society, cultural or political elite, as one might call them. They wanted to jettison the spiritual and make themselves the um, the new center of people's universes.
Yeah,
Or you could take the more cynical view and say that they were being instructed by other beings in the spiritual side to get everyone else to jettison their spiritual worship or practices so that now it's easier for those
right.
beings who are left to control things.
Archons.
Whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, functionally, it's kind of a underrated Mamoru Oshii film, Avalon, that didn't get a lot of attention. It's live action. It's kind of his answer to The Matrix. Um, a lot of You watch that film, and I think that is the closest we're ever going to get to an answer of why he left the Catholic Church. He had
Mhm.
gone into seminary. He was going to be a Jesuit, and he was actually, he
Oh,
still is, I believe, believes largely in the Catholic faith for the most part. But the night before he was to be made a priest, a Jesuit, his mentor called him into a room and had a talk with him and gave him the real story. He left the church the next day,
hmm.
never to speak of it again. But you look at Avalon, and it's all about how these people live in this dull, colorless world, continually playing this online video game that's constant warfare to pay their bills and to get by in this subsistence living. And whenever you go into the game, you're always mentored or talked to. Your interface is a priest. And she goes on a hunt for her own mentor who had gone missing. And where the film leads is you find out that he ascended to reality, which is our world. And once you get there, there's color, and it's very jarring. The world she lives in versus
Mhm.
the reality she steps into, and she finds her mentor, and her mentor says, "See, you get it. You understand. You see the higher purpose in things. You understand. You've seen outside the cave. You should become one of us and help, just keep the people in line because they couldn't handle this. You need to become one of us. And she shoots him.
Hmm.
I think that's the closest answer we're ever going to get to why Oshi decided not to join the priesthood.
True. Yeah. It would be interesting to find out how much of that is the priesthood and how much of that is the Jesuits.
It's probably the Jesuits, but I'm of the opinion that when the Roman Empire became the Holy Roman Empire, they remained Saturnarian and sun worshippers at heart, that they never really changed. They just overlaid their religion over top of Christianity.
Well, it's certainly possible, especially those at the top may have done that.
And that was their issue with the Templars, is the Templars had an earlier version. And they knew.
Could be.
Well, that and they needed money.
Well, yeah. Yeah, let's not forget how rich the Templars were.
Well, yeah, they went in and they wanted to burn the book that had their debts written down. But
yeah,
yeah. So yeah, I've been looking into a lot of this stuff as of late, thinking, well, maybe it needs to be reconsidered. I'm not saying what's true and what isn't. It's just very obvious to us that a large portion of our reality has been blotted out purposely, that certain things have been kept quiet for the benefit of others, and that, it's like you said with COVID. Well, if these things are real, what else have they been lying to us about?
Yep. But in a view of things that won't lie to you.
Oh, thank you.
Let's for a moment here. So perfect for the Halloween season. In the link at the top of the chat, and it should be in the description to the video, you can check out
Click all books.
You can check out Ishii's about page here on Amazon. A ton of books. If you are into comics, if you are into prose, if you are into what would you call Booths of Steel? Like,
let me answer that.
I'm gonna
Okay,
say
first off,
documentary, but
click on the tab that says all books. You scroll on down there. Oh, well, that's incorrect. Whatever. Okay, Boobs of Steel. Boobs of Steel is the best pop culture book you'll ever read. It chronicles the Amazonian archetype, and all the way from the Neolithic age to the modern age, why she's important, why she exists, and why it is that the woke crowd hates her so much. If you want a crash course in understanding Jungian archetypes, while also getting history of pulp, mythology, anime, the 80s, this is a book for you. It is a lot of fun. It is not your typical pop culture read. And then Case File Arkham is probably my favorite. Oh, that and Scars. Scars is the best buddy story you'll ever read. That's a novella, but Case File Arkham, up there, you've got the beautiful femme fatale there with the detective. Graphic novel series, there's two of them, and it is a classic 1940s detective noir set in Lovecraft's Arkham with all its horrors and monsters. Yeah, it's beautiful women, tough guys, and hell beasts from the abyss.
Yeah, I have to say that Case File Arkham to me is like a lot of things get thrown about as Lovecraftian these days, but to me, these are two of the books that have the same spirit as Lovecraft. Like he didn't write these, but you could easily. This doesn't stick out like a sore thumb when you're looking at his universe.
Well, the idea is Philip Marlowe, and those stories were written around the same time and under the same cultural conditions that produced Lovecraft stories. And the initial idea was Lovecraft's protagonists, the world is always happening to them. They're a victim of that world. They are doomed. And I thought, well, what if we just put a Philip Marlowe type tough guy detective who's going to walk in, get in the monster's face, and punch it? The guy who's going to go find trouble instead of being terrified, running from his own shadows and hiding, waiting for the world to end. Why not someone who had that well, he's more of a 40s detective, but Marlowe was created in the 20s and 30s. One of those hard-boiled detectives who's just seen it all, and he's not gonna go down without a fight. And I tried to do it as much of a fusion of the Marlowe stories meets Lovecraft as possible.
Yeah, we need to get some more Case File Arkham.
That might happen.
I think I see what's happening here. For some reason, this is only giving us the Kindle books.
Oh, do all formats, yeah. By the way, you want to really, really get my books in hardcover or in hard copy. One, you can't trust digital. It's just truth is you cannot trust digital anymore. It's not reliable. Books will always be there. And black and white art always looks so much better. Just get paperback, I guess.
Nothing was showing up for paper.
Black and white always looks better.
Oh yeah, paperback.
When in print, it does not look good on a screen. You want this in print, and the black and white art of Case File Arkham is beautiful.
I agree. So, guys, check that out in the links. And the other thing I want to talk about, I have to say I am thoroughly enjoying Radio Bonsai. So for anyone who hasn't seen Radio Bonsai is like, what if MTV didn't suck? And like if you could take sort of radio DJs from the 70s and 80s, back when they still curated their own playlists and they had control of their own shows, back before they were bought by the national Clear Channel and iHeartRadio people. But you added video with those DJs. That's what Radio Bonsai is like.
Thank you. I put a lot of work into those. It was the weird thing about Radio Bonsai is it was never intended. I fell into it. Listeners are on my YouTube channel, which I got banned from YouTube for doing Radio Bonsai, by the way. That's why it's on Rumble, because Rumble's so much better, actually. Listeners kept wanting to know about the music I listened to, and I did a couple episodes, and people wanted more, and it just kind of turned into this sort of, okay, let's bring back when MTV didn't suck. Let's have when alt rock and alternative radio didn't suck. When we had real DJs, real music, and real videos. So yeah, if you want that experience, that's what I'm trying to give you.
Yeah, and generally you are live Tuesday evenings. I want to say it's
5 o'clock. It's always on Tuesday, 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock West Coast, 8 o'clock East Coast, and maybe I'll move that to like a Friday after I get a certain number of listeners. But right now, I think it's safer just to have a day that most people don't broadcast, which is Tuesday.
Yeah, I think the other thing is it's not only other people broadcasting, but a lot of people have real world things to do on Friday evenings.
Yeah.
So it makes it kind of tough. Like a Sunday evening might be good when like everybody's back home and you got to get ready for the work week to start. But so for Radio Bonsai, you also do take requests, not like a call-in request, but like you are often asking people like, hey, what kind of music do you want to hear this week? What's your favorite band in this kind of?
I do themed shows because there's such a wide variety of music out there we're not being exposed to. And I'm always encouraging listeners to, in the comments of the shows, make requests, because one of the things I want to do is not just expose younger audiences to music they're not aware of because it doesn't get played anymore due to rights issues and record companies not owning. If the record companies don't own the music, they don't want you to hear it.
Yeah.
But no, just exposing younger listeners to music they may have missed out on. I also want to hear the music being produced now that isn't getting the attention it should. I refuse to believe that Zoomers aren't out in their garage with their keyboards and their computers and their guitars making their own music. And I want to hear it. I want to hear the innovators of today and put a spotlight on them because they're not getting the attention they need. It's this idea that there's no art being produced is not true. They're just not being they're being blacklisted or banned because they don't either they're not owned by someone or they're not pulling the right message or whatever. Talent's out there, and I am going to do my damnedest to put a light on it.
Yeah, and I think, and even more is there's just such a mass of everybody doing everything at one time. It's
Right.
hard to separate the signal from the noise. So, like, let's say you do have one really talented band. How could you possibly find them amongst the other 50,000 not so talented bands? You know? So they're to me, I think curating experiences
Yeah.
is going to be a big industry within the next few years. Like even with AI, well, probably especially with AI, people are going to want curated experiences from a human. Movies, music, art, food. Uh, that's my prediction. If you want a job in the future, get good about figuring out what goes well together.
And more importantly, it's not just that I curate the music. The larger the community gets, the more people I have out there making suggestions saying, hey, I stumbled upon this band, check this out. And that has been great. That's actually been one of the things I enjoy most about doing the show is listeners turning me on to music that I otherwise would have never heard and getting to share it with all of you.
So what's sort of the how would you say, like the best or the thing that you never would have listened to on your own, but because somebody recommended, like you loved it the most?
The most, I would say right now the one that's coming to mind is Nobody's Wolf Child.
Okay.
Yeah, very strange. Nobody's Wolf Child. A little bit of a mouthful there, and it's one of my just the woman's exceptionally talented. The music's kind of a fusion of um, goth, bit of synth, lots and lots of traditional Celtic music mixed with rock. But it really it doesn't have it defies labels. It's its own thing, and the woman who sings has one hell of a voice. Is just incredibly talented. So that one stands out. There's another one called PH0. Um, they're labeled as industrial, but again, they're all over the place. Their sound really is entirely unique to them. Those two come to mind immediately. Those are I'm trying. There are others, but right now that's what's standing out.
So anyone who is interested, I just put a link in the chat. Go over to Rumble and follow. What do they call it? They do call it following, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah,
Or
because
is
there's
it,
like
yeah.
two different, like subscribers and followers are two different things, and it
Yeah,
always confuses
subscribers
me.
actually pay money.
Ah, I see. But yeah, go give it a follow. If there's quite a backlog now, so if you've got work to do, there's no reason not to throw that on in the background while you're doing stuff. And if you say, hey, I know this cool kind of music that hasn't been played yet, drop Ishii a line,
Yes.
or catch him on the Tuesday broadcast, and drop him a message in the chat or in the comments on one of the videos.
And I promise most of my it's very rare for any of the shows for me to get into this bizarre esoteric stuff. Seriously. This is kind of unique, this episode.
Well, it's the spook season, man. We got to get into the esoteric and the weird, in the weeds, I should say.
Yes.
Um, but so, is there anywhere else we should be following you? Anywhere else we should be checking out your stuff?
Really, the things I would ask is go to Radio Bonsai, Radio Bonsai _88 on Twitter X, and follow me there. And depending on what you like, if you like graphic novels, considering the Halloween season, do me a favor and really just check out one of the Case File Arkham books. Give it a shot, see what you think. Or if you're into sci-fi and want a buddy story that's going to make you feel good, check out Scars. It's about a fallen astronaut and his uplifted, hyper-intelligent rat. It's
Awesome.
kind of a never. It was the one story I never expected to write.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Scars. It's not a long book.
No, it's a novella.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. I would tell people to go check it out. The world building is great. The where it takes place feels like it's real, but it also is like, if you've ever known an animal like a human, this book is for you.
Yeah. Yeah, Scars made me realize rats are cute as much as dogs or cats. That is true. That is true. And the strange thing is for science fiction, a lot of the science in it is actually real. That's the weird part. The rats disarming bombs, that's real.
Yeah, don't they still use them over in Cambodia?
Yeah, they use them all over the world. Well, I don't know how much longer you want to go on. If so, well, I need to step away for a second.
Well, I was thinking this is a good time to wrap things up real quick. So yeah, that's where you can find Ishi. For me, I will. This is, I believe, my last show for this week. But next Monday, I have Fabrizio Aiello. We're talking horror in comics. He's the artist author for Horace H. Hoover. On Tuesday, I've got Dunder Moose. We're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons Appendix N, and what books, movies should we add to it. On the 16th, or actually, I should say the night of the 15th, the morning of the 16th, we have Kat Rocha, editor extraordinaire and author. She is coming on. We're going to be talking about cults, secret societies, and witches to do our horror themes. So come back and it'll be a lot of fun. So thanks for coming, everyone, and we'll see you next time.